You guys, AI is so hot right now. In just a few short years, we somehow went from this to this to this. Okay, that's actually Will Smith. But with the recent exponential boom of AI assistants, AI video, and AI robotics, now is the perfect time to look back at AI in movies over the years. Of course you have Alfie from The Creator, Ava from Ex Machina, Sunny from iRobot, Chappie, Baymax, Alita, and so much more we'll get into today. In this video, let's take a closer look at how each AI character was brought to life. So sit back AI, relax AI, and let's get AI. First off the top, we gotta talk about The Creator. Set in a dystopian future where John David Washington is still getting acting roles, AI has infiltrated every aspect of humanity, helping us to deliver our babies and fight the forces of evil. As the story ramps up, we're introduced to Alfie, the first ever AI child with the power to remotely control all technology. So how did they create the most dangerous weapon on the planet and disguise it as a cute little kid? The director, Gareth Edwards, explains the biggest challenge of designing the simulants.
You want to know when you look at that person that they're not human, but you do too much to them and you don't feel anything.
So exactly how much do you take away before you start to lose connection to a character? They found that no matter what, they had to keep the throat. By doing this, they were just recognizable as human. It might not look like much from the front,
but then you get a real reward when they turn to the side. You just go, whoa.
When it came time for the visual effects, the absolute psychos at Industrial Light and Magic went to work. It started with an intricate CG model of the actor's head, merged with whirring machinery. Since Alfie would be on screen for so much of the runtime, every detail counted, from each spinning ring to every metallic surface. By taking the original footage, painting out the back of her head, matching the movement of the CG, and layering her real face back on, it all came together to form the final, unbelievable image. Pretty soon, the process became so streamlined that they could do it on anybody.
You get a head ring, and you get a head ring. Everyone gets a head ring.
But another reason it all looked so convincing was how they shot it. By using lightweight cameras and only gathering a small crew, the director was able to get intimate moments like these that only sold the realism even more. And filming in real-world locations all over Southeast Asia got them some truly beautiful shots. For a movie made with just $80 million, it now has the entire industry rethinking how they spend money. I mean, the fact that it was able to achieve visual effects of this quality when Marvel movies 3 times that budget look like this is absolutely insane. And as for the AI,
weirdly, as we were making this film, AI has gotten better and better. And it feels like we're at that tipping point now where it's here. The Pandora's box has been opened. Should we embrace it? Should we destroy it?
Good question, Gareth. Only time will tell. But until then, let's get familiar with Ex Machina. In the misty mountains of Norway, deep in the forest, in a secluded house, Caleb meets Nathan, and in turn, meets Ava.
The real story of this film is about a machine becoming a girl. The protagonist needs to fall in love with her. Not just feel attracted to, but also protective of her as well.
While this movie only had to focus on one single character instead of building out an entire world, their main challenge was designing something that looked functional as a robot, but could also be real enough to fall in love with. The role went to Alicia Vikander, who had great control of her body language. It might look easy enough, but all her subtle, jerky movements are really the first step in selling the idea that she's AI. Once her performance was set, their next task was the makeup. To get the edge of her face to look right, they put her in a bald cap and blended it with an outer lip, making it look like something you could just peel off. Then came the suit. They spent 4 months creating a skin-tight mesh that would follow the contours of her body.
We had to work out a way of constructing the whole top of the suit in one piece to show every single beautiful curve of a woman's body.
And so you get this sort of sense of a girl flickering in your periphery vision while you're looking at a machine.
For the insides, the team closely studied human anatomy, the way the vertebrae stacks, how bones curve around and fit together. The last piece of the puzzle was imitating it with CGI. Double Negative, who usually has their hands full working on movies like Scott Pilgrim, Total Recall, and Pacific Rim, scaled back to replace Ava's head, arms, torso, and legs. Like with Alfie and The Creator, the character really comes alive when you see all the negative space. The end result looked pretty convincing, and made Ava a refreshing character the audience could relate to. Maybe not. All this hard work won the team a well-deserved Oscar for visual effects. And at the end of the movie, after escaping into the real world, she's ready to challenge everything we know. But now let's travel to the 22nd century, perhaps one of Spielberg's greatest classics. AI Artificial Intelligence tells the story of a robot child longing to be loved, set in a reality that seems more believable now than it did 20 years ago. Realistic humanoid robots? Check. Using AI in the filthiest ways imaginable? Check. When it came time for this iconic shot, the actress wore a blue head wrap with her face layered on top. Seems familiar. And after sticking the CG head to her real one, they showed off that sweet negative space again.
What's the density? Is it contrasty enough? Is it lit correctly? Those are the things that we look for.
At times played by real actors, at times remote controlled, at times with full-on puppets, and at times a mixture of it all. It was enough to give any kid nightmares. Another shot that's been burned into my mind is this one. By putting these red dots on her face, they had points to stick the 3D geometry to. Having the actress tilt her head up and down on set gave them reference for how the pieces should look. But when it came to the star of the movie David, the only way to go was to cast Haley Joel Osment. Having already starred in The Sixth Sense, the kid knew a thing or two about being creepy as f***.
We wanted to make the actions very simple. If you were like in a chair, you'd like sit down, and David always have perfect posture, and he could sit there for several hours or more.
If you ever watch this movie again, pay attention to how he never blinks once. Psycho behavior. Once he had the mannerisms down, they had to think of other ways to show off his robot form. For a shot like this, they went with the oldest trick in the book, hiding his lower half underneath a table. And last but not least, who could forget his lovable friend, Teddy? Starting with a rough prototype that got more and more complicated, the team added each strand of fur to give him a huggable appearance.
We had a rig where I would be attached to Teddy and my feet connected to his feet. It was kind of like skiing almost.
With more points of motion than the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, it took 6 puppeteers to control him. And even though the team got it to perform in real time, they still had to build out a CG version. The animators gave Teddy a walk cycle that the puppeteers would then try to mimic.
And then they did their best to sort of match that, and then we took the stuff that they've done now in our shots and kind of worked that in.
But cute teddy bears are only the beginning.
They made us too smart, too quick, and too many. When the end comes, all that will be left is us.
Yeah, we're screwed. iRobot introduced a futuristic Chicago where humans and robots live in a perfect utopia. Well, except for the inflation. The global megacorporation USR has plans to put an NS5 in every home.
No more do you need a cell phone. No more do you need a fax machine.
Fax machine? The movie put on screen the 3 laws of robotics, a perfect loop created to ensure that every robot on the planet is safe to walk among humans. But when the co-founder of USR is found dead, the NS5 named Sonny is the primary suspect. "20 years later, and this scene is still badass. To create a cold and calculating robot like Sonny, something no one had ever seen before, but believable enough to buy into his humanity towards the end.
We're basically making a robotic movie star. He has to be photoreal, he has to act, he has to emote.
His CG model was meticulously crafted, from his face down to his legs. To really bring him to life, they went with the chameleon, Alan Tudyk, who brought us such memorable characters as King Candy, K2SO, and the goat from Wish. But once they pushed Sonny's design closer to his actual anatomy, the filming began. They split it into steps. The first was to get Alan in a green suit on set, which would be used everywhere else in the movie, like for this part, and for this part. Damn, that's a lot of green suits. He performed the scene just as Sonny would. Then they'd film everything a second time, but with the real version of Sonny for reference. And in order to match a CG version to this one, they used these balls. One is chrome, so when you look into it, much like an eyeball, you can see the reflections of all the lights on set. The other is a simple gray one that shows direction and intensity. Using this info, they could properly light the CG Sonny. But what about his animation? Well, they went with mocap, taking the footage they already shot and acting it out all over again. The infrared cameras all over the stage shot out light that triangulated where the markers on these suits are. Then it was all translated to a 3D model. Alan Tudyk must have been so confused. And for his facial performance, they analyzed each frame and animated every tiny nuance to match the CGI with Tudyk. After all this, the VFX artists could put Sonny into any scene. In the multiverse of robots, Sonny stands out because of his sleek design and his memorable performance. But from the streets of Chicago to the slums of Johannesburg, we gotta talk about Chappie. After a police robot is kidnapped, he's booted up with an untested AI and starts to gain human consciousness. Oh, whoops. How did that get in there? Same sniff thing too. So how did they create a believable, fully CG character and set him against a gritty backdrop of South Africa? Ask Neil Blomkamp, the madman who gave us District 9, an iconic entry into the world of science fiction and probably one of my top 5 favorite movies. With his experience in crafting otherworldly beings living among humans, he could direct the team creating something similar yet unfamiliar.
Ultimately, the true test for Chappie will be if people forget that he's CG.
They started with concept art, going through multiple color configurations until finally landing on that striking navy blue. But it's one thing to draw it out. How did they figure out exactly where all the bits and pieces would connect? Drawings like these don't always translate to real life. So they went to the studio image engine and had to build him out in 3D space. And since his model had to be printed, the placement of each piece was super important. With the model finally figured out, they worked closely with Weta, famous for Lord of the Rings and Blade Runner.
There were some things that we would do and they'd be like, that structurally won't actually work for us, his leg would fall off.
Getting him to have just the right color until eventually creating a life-size version. As a lover of robots, mechs, and Zords, seeing all their hard work brings a tear to my eye. The gang teaches Chappie their criminal ways, getting into some pretty illegal stuff. But none of it is as bad as Hugh Jackman's haircut. Yo fam, just ruined my life. And by casting the GOAT Sharlto Copley, they had the perfect guy to bring Chappie to life. By looking at these shots, you can't deny that the team went hard in showing us the possibilities of AI. But believe it or not, all that was pushed even further with Alita. From the mind of Yukito Kishiro, we learned the story of Alita, a cyborg that slowly remembers her past until she becomes a battle angel.
I identify with this character, feeling insignificant, realizing she has power, but then what do you do with that power?
They worked closely with James Cameron, and while Avatar didn't need to look completely photoreal, Alita did.
For Alita, we're on Earth. Alita needs to be photoreal so that she can stand right next to Christoph Waltz and look together, of one in the frame.
So to make one of the most ambitious digital characters ever attempted, whose CG model was crammed with thousands of different parts, they chose Rosa Salazar. She might have taken the role a little too seriously. With a ton of advancements in mocap technology, breaking away from indoor studios meant that the actress could now physically be on set.
You're wearing a helmet with mic pack, battery, microphone, a titanium boom, a recorder.
With multiple camera setup, they would record each marker, which were then translated into 3D space, driving a skeleton that would then move Alita. Alan Tudyk is still confused. Sure, it was all difficult, but it made a world of difference capturing the movements in an actual environment, giving all the weight and realism you need to sell the CGI. They also had to capture her facial performance, building on all the advancements made with Gollum, Davy Jones, Neytiri, Hulk, Caesar, and Mark Zucker. Oh, I'm sorry, that's his actual face. There was a lot to live up to.
It's all about this. If you can make the audience believe that that character is real in a tight close-up.
Weta stepped up again, and much like iRobot, they would analyze all the footage and match her CG face, which is pure nightmare fuel, to what was happening.
Every pull, every indent, every scar, every crease, Things I wish they didn't put in are there.
All the microscopic nuances of human movement, all the details we couldn't even imagine. Like, if this much work went into just her eyeball, imagine all the other things no one would ever notice. For a shot like this, Rosa was taken out, Alita was put in, but a single tear from another take was extracted and reused. And to see the breakdown of these transformations, from every skin pull and eye tick, it really makes you think just how far we've come. By the end, they pushed performance capture even further into the future. But with AI, all that might eventually be done with just a click of a button, which is pretty scary. And while we're talking about scary, it's time to talk about Megan. More than just a viral sensation that for a brief shining moment brought the whole world together, Megan shimmied her way straight into our hearts. Of course, there have been lots of creepy dolls throughout the years. Slappy, Chucky, Gabby, but Megan's the first one born. Not of satanic rituals or long-lost curses, but of artificial intelligence. When 8-year-old Katie loses her parents to a car accident, her aunt, a roboticist at a high-tech toy company, brings it home to help Katie through the grief. The director explores this concept of distraction.
Suddenly kids just had devices and parents are just handing out devices to the kids. And I get it. It's so hard to keep a child entertained. There was a really clear allegory in this just about, parenting in the 21st century.
But since Megan is also programmed to protect Katie at all costs, she decides for herself that anyone who hurts her needs to be dealt with.
The thing about AI is you essentially enable a robot to teach itself. They'll render us useless and they'll decide that they don't need us anymore.
So in order to show what a menacing threat she was, they used 3 different methods. The main one was an actual actress with a background as a dancer as well as a freaking ninja. The silicone mask she wore did the job, but since she needed to see where she was going, they had to cut out the eyes. Yikes! I'm not sleeping tonight. This led to the second method, replacing her face with a CG version whenever the camera came in for a close-up. And to balance it all out, the third method was carefully constructing an animatronic puppet that could be controlled off-set, making the eyes blink, lips move around, and with the twist of a stick, scare the crap out of you.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
When you bring a real-life puppet on set, people suddenly react to it in a different way. Its eyes turn to look at you and its head turn and it starts talking to you. It is creepy.
This constant and unsettling mix of puppet, real actress, and CGI meant that the viewer never knew exactly how Megan was working. You ever heard of something called Uncanny Valley, where CGI creations try so hard to be human that they end up haunting our dreams? Yeah, Megan did that on purpose.
When you're watching her, your mind keeps tricking you into thinking that she's a real person. And I think that's one of the fun things of the whole movie.
And when it comes to her movements, they went as subtle as possible.
The biggest movement would be the cock to the side of the head. That one was so effective that we did that a lot, where she's just like, excuse me?
For a small-scale horror film, Megan was pretty effective at traumatizing kids everywhere. But now, let's do a complete 180 and soar through the skies of Big Hero 6. Baymax. This lovable, huggable, white marshmallow has become so popular, he has his own ride at Tokyo Disneyland. But where the heck did he come from? Well, you see, kids, when Disney bought Marvel back in 2009, the merger brought to light a comic series called Big Hero 6. While the rest of the team had their own striking looks and dabbled in technologies like maglev and plasma lasers, Hero's brother Tadashi worked in AI and programmed 10,000 medical procedures into this squishy robot. And while the term robot instantly brings to mind a bunch of wires and cold metal jolting around like a derp, the team at Disney had to radically rethink what Baymax could look like. They cracked their knuckles, got out their pencils, and went to work. Ugh, this is me writing this script.
We really had to do a lot of research into technology and not look at what we have now, but look at what's coming in the next 5 to 10 years.
Their research ended up at something called soft robotics, mainly used in the medical industry. It was basically machinery wrapped up in an inflatable, translucent vinyl material, and it eventually led to Baymax's entire design philosophy.
Titanium skeleton, carbon fiber. Right, even lighter.
But that's just for the body. When it came to his face, they actually drew inspiration from a trip to Tokyo, where they found these bells at a temple that had a pretty striking design. 2 circles with a line in the middle. You'd think there's not much emotion you can bring to just 2 circles in a line, but you would be wrong. And after hiring this guy to voice him, their next step was to figure out how he would move. By looking at the walk cycles of everything from babies to elephants, they finally settled on penguins.
We did a little testing. Everyone agreed that the penguin was the winner. Not just because he's the fastest there, but because it just seemed the cutest. So
the animators, after working out how all the characters would simply sit in a chair, figured Baymax would be so chonky that the chair would just stick to his ass and knock everything over.
The more we stripped away, the more we found that audiences could project their own emotions onto Baymax.
And speaking of emotions, the core story of love between these two brothers and the heartbreak that eventually finds Hero is something that all of us can relate to.
The hardest part about dealing with loss is understanding the person that you've lost is still inside of you, and that you'll always be able to get to that place.
Hero, I will always be with you.
This and the grandma part in Coco. Damn you, Disney! And now that you've made it this far into the video, enjoy this chill-ass montage of other examples of artificial intelligence. From murderous dolls to huggable clouds, simulant kids to gangster bots, and seductive droids to battle angels, I hope you've gotten a better look at how your favorite AI characters were brought to life. The world we live in is no longer recognizable, and the future is more unpredictable than ever. But I have hope that AI and humanity will work together, that we'll strive for a brighter tomorrow, and that our teamwork will... Oh, so it's like that, huh? Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. Hey, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.